Hi guys, it's Tara and welcome back to Crafting with Curly Cues. Today I am super excited to be a special guest for Your Next Stamp, and I am going to be making some really fun Fuse Tool Shaker cards featuring this adorable Fishy Fun stamp set that just came out in the Your Next Stamp June release. So I am starting with my A2 side folding card bases. I made these out of Neenah Solar White, and I am taking a stencil from Faber-Castell. These are like kind of chipboard-ish stencils. They're definitely reusable, but they're not the plastic that we're kind of used to. And I am just taking some texture paste and going right directly onto my card front with some of that texture paste over that stencil. So this is just going to, as it would imply, add some texture to the front of the card and just give it a little bit of an additional element of detail behind the kind of little scene that I'm going to create here. So you absolutely could skip this step. It was just kind of something. I've seen a lot of the white on white texture and I just kind of wanted to play with that a little bit. So I decided to go ahead and do that with this card. So now you can see here that you can just scrape these stencils right off. You can see obviously I've used this one before with some different paint because it's stained, but I'm just scraping it off and scraping out the texture paste there, and this stencil is definitely ready to use again. So I am taking some Bristol Smooth White cardstock. Never mind those images that are already on there. That's from a prior card that I kind of messed up, but I had a whole bunch of this left, so I wanted to use this paper. And I am using this Fishy Fun stamp set and the coordinating dies. This is from the Your Next Stamp June release, and this could not be timed better because Finding Dory is coming out, and this stamp set is perfect for Finding Dory themed cards or parties or any of that good stuff. So I am taking this really cool underwater coral reef scene that is all one big stamp. So how great is that? It just kind of does the work for you. And I am stamping it onto my Bristol. I did put a little bit of craft foam underneath because I wasn't getting a great impression because it is such a large stamp. But when you put something underneath with a little bit more give like that, it helps get a really crisp, clear impression. So I'm going to stamp a couple of the little Nemo looking fish there. And I am coating everything with some clear embossing powder. So I'm using my VersaFine Black Onyx pigment ink for this stamping. And that pigment ink stays wet a little bit longer, and that allows me to come back over with my clear embossing powder. And that's just going to make my coloring that much easier later and add a little bit of sparkle and shine. So here's my crushed turtle that I'm putting. I'm doing 2 cards, so that's why I'm stamping everything twice. And so in case you were wondering, and I'm going to be using one of each element on each card. So now that I've got those all stamped and got the embossing powder on them, I'm going to come in with my heat tool and I'm going to melt that embossing powder. And I love watching the clear embossing powder melt because it looks all kind of frosty and weird when it's on there, but then you melt it and it's that perfect crystal clear and you get that crisp black image underneath. I think it's so cool. And then your images are nice and shiny, which makes it look like you made all this extra effort to make pretty shiny images and really you didn't. So hey, it's one of those little tricks that's nice and handy. So now I have a scrap of Simon Says Stamp black cardstock, and I'm going to use it for my sentiments. I'm going to heat emboss my sentiments on white on top of this black cardstock. So this one is super cute. It says, "You're fantastic." And then the second sentiment I'm going to use says, "Keep on swimming." Again, how perfect for Finding Dory coming out. I'm sure they planned that over at Your Next Stamp. Like, there's no way they didn't plan that. But it's such a fun stamp set, and there's all kinds of other little fish in there too. You can build like super fun underwater scenes, so I can't wait to play with it some more. So I just kind of stamped both of those. I'm eventually going to cut these into kind of banners, so I just spaced them enough out so that I would have room to cut them later. And I just wanted to do all this while I had all my embossing stuff out, so I didn't have to bust that back out again later. It's rare that I plan that far ahead, but I did this time, so I was pretty proud of myself. So now that that's on there, I'm just going to go ahead and heat set that, and that will be all taken care of for the sentiments. I'll deal with the like cutting them out and stuff later. So I am going to color all of this in, as I'm sure you guys could have guessed, with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. I'm pretty obsessed with them. They're kind of my go-to right now. And when you emboss your images like this, it's even more convenient and quick to color with them because that heat embossing kind of turns everything into a little gosh, I don't know. It creates the separate little like almost containers for your ink to go into because it would have to jump up over the top of that heat embossed little ridge to get anywhere else. So it just makes the coloring quick and fun and easy. It makes it so that they don't blend together. I was just able to go in really quickly and get all these taken care of. I apologize for not having the colors there for you, and I'll be 100% honest and tell you guys that I actually made this card quite some time ago, and I've just been waiting to get this video up for you all. And I don't remember specifically which colors these are, so I'm so sorry. I'm doing a lot better now when I record new videos of making sure that I either flash the colors to the camera or that I write them down or something, but this was before I had dedicated myself to doing that, so I apologize. I will definitely link to my 60 pack of zigs that I love to use that has just about every color you could possibly need. So I will link to that for sure, but I just don't have the specific colors that I'm using. But you could color this little coral reef any color you want. I'm actually going to do the second one in like all different colors. I'm not going to color them all on scene because I just don't think that you need to watch me do that much zig coloring. We'd be here forever. But I did color in the bubbles, and it turns out later that the die cut doesn't actually cut the bubbles out, so I don't end up using those. But you know, hey, they're super cute. If you weren't cutting them out with the die, you could use those bubbles. I think they're super fun. So now I'm coloring the little turtle, and I'm just using a few different shades of green for him and coming in and making him all super tubular crush-like. I'm excited to see the movie. Is anybody else going to see Finding Dory? By the time this video gets posted, this movie will have been out and you will have all already seen Finding Dory. But here, sitting here in this moment doing the narration, it doesn't come out for another week. So I probably will have seen it by the time this movie comes out. But I'm pretty excited. My kiddo is really excited to see it. I actually asked her yesterday because we went and saw the Alice in Wonderland movie. And so on the way back, I was like, so do we need to go see Finding Dory when it comes out? And she seriously gave me this look like I can't even believe how dumb you are for even asking me that question. I was like, oh, so we're seeing it then? Okay. So anyway, now I'm coloring the little clownfish just like Nemo. And I'm just using a couple different shades of orange, and then I'll come in with a tiny bit of gray, and then I'll use my Wink Stella to blend that out in those white stripes so they don't look so solid white. And now I'm going to take my little wire snips, and I'm going to snip apart all the coordinating dies that come with this stamp set. So I particularly enjoy the coordinating die for that little reef scene because it seriously cuts out that whole little scene and makes it so easy to build the scenes on your card. I love when stamp companies just make it easy for me to make awesome cards, right? Like, I mean, anything that I can do that makes it look like I put a ton of effort in without actually having to put a ton of effort in is like my favorite. And that die is absolutely one of those things. Like, you can see how it's going to cut right down in between all that seaweed and stuff. It's pretty fantastic. So I ran those through my Big Shot, and now you can see how that cuts out. Isn't that cool? Like, it just looks so cool. And the only one I had to run through twice was the little fish and the turtle. Actually, I'm just kidding. I'm running them all through twice. Duh, because I did 2 of everything. But I even eyeballed my coloring for the sand pretty well down at the bottom, so I don't have a ton of extra white space underneath the coloring there. I thought that worked out pretty well with my die cuts, so I was pretty proud of myself. So now that everything is all cut up, I'm going to start on the next phase of my cards here. So I used some square pierced stackables dies to cut out some squares to go on the front of my card here. Those are from My Favorite Things. And I am taking my blueprint sketch and my peacock feathers. This has become my favorite Distress ink color combo for underwater scenes. I just love the way that these 2 inks blend together. And I am going to just color these little squares to create kind of an ocean. So you can see how soft that, I mean, I just love it. I don't know. And that blueprint sketch, honestly, I hadn't used it a whole ton because blue is not my go-to. Like, it's a super pretty blue color, but I just don't tend to gravitate toward blue. But for some reason, I tried this color combo for the ocean, and I just fell in love with it. Like, I love the depth that blueprint sketch gives it. Like, I just think it's so super pretty. So I'm just obviously doing a gradient where it's darker at the bottom and then it blends out up into that peacock feathers towards the top. And then I'm going to take my Distress sprayer and I'm going to do a little water spritzing on here. So for anybody who is not familiar with this technique, this is one of the best possible things you can do with your Distress inks, in my personal opinion. The Distress inks reactivate with water, so when you do that, it wicks away the ink in the water splotchy spots and you get this fabulous distressed, I don't know, I just love it. I think it's great. So now I'm going to create some shaker pockets to put on top of these oceans, and for that I'm going to use my We Are Memory Keepers fuse tool. So this is a fabulous tool that I don't bust out nearly often enough, and essentially what it does is it heats up really super hot. Don't touch that puppy, let me tell you. And it's going to fuse the two sheets of acetate together. So I am using a stamp pocket, so this is just an Avery Elle stamp pocket, and I am just fusing around this square. So I'm using that as my guideline for size, and I am just going to go ahead and fuse two sides. I put a piece of craft foam underneath because you don't want to do it on top of your craft mat because that tool gets super hot and it will melt it. And it's going to kind of stick to that craft foam too. It kind of gets a little melty, but if you do it quickly enough, it's not going to be a problem. But I find that that's the way that I get the best fusing results, is on top of that little bit of a surface that has some give. So that craft foam works really, really well for me. So before I seal the third side, I'm going to go ahead and fill this shaker pocket up with all kinds of goodies. So I am using Pretty Pink Posh Blue Lagoon iridescent sequins, and then some Pretty Pink Posh iridescent confetti, and I have the heart in one shaker and the star confetti in another shaker. So I just thought that was really pretty for in front of those little ocean scenes. So here is my second little shaker pocket, and I'm just going to fill that up with the other confetti and then put some more of those 6mm Blue Lagoon sequins in there, and then I use that little square again to use as my guide for sizing, and then I'm cutting pretty close to that fuse line because I want this to be hidden behind these thin little frames. I created these frames with the same stackables set that I used to create the ocean square there, and just made a really thin little frame. And then I'm taking my score tape. I wanted a good strong adhesive to keep these thin little frames on there, and I have the 1/4" score tape. So I'm taking that 1/4" score tape and then cutting it in half, so I get these really super thin little pieces of this really strong adhesive, and I'm just going to line that white frame with those. So I love making shakers with the fuse tool because you can keep your cards flat. So you're going to watch, like, I'm going to shove this shaker pocket like right directly on the front of my card, and it's going to be flat on the card. It's not going to create a whole bunch of extra bulk, so you can send these through the mail like with no problem. And I kind of love that because everything is so flat, there's not a ton of room for those shakers to wiggle all over the place. So you kind of always have shaker bits in front of your scene, which I think is really pretty. Like some other shakers, like when you use craft foam or conventional shaker window, all your shaker bits fall all the way down to the bottom, and then, you know, you don't really get the effect of it unless you shake it around on purpose. So that's another reason I like these fuse pockets. So you can see once I had the frame lined with the score tape, I popped the little pocket that I created with the shaker bits right on top. And now I'm just putting more of that score tape on the back of the little acetate pocket so that I can adhere it to my card. So now I'm taking my card base. That texture paste is nice and dry at this point because I've taken so incredibly long to do all my coloring and stuff. And I'm just going to put this on kind of at a wonky angle. I'm going to put my background down first, and then I'm going to peel off the back of that score tape and put this window right over the top of that background. Look how fun those shaker bits are in that ocean. I think it's so cute. And now I'm going to use all of the little elements that I've created to finish building the little scene on the front of this card. So you can kind of see what I mean about that texture paste on the background, that you could totally skip that step because you don't see a whole ton of it. I just think it added just enough extra to the background to take this card, like, you know, up that extra notch. So now I'm just going to glue my sentiment right behind that like coral reef scene at the angle that I want it. And then I'm going to create a banner out of the end of that so that I have a nice fishtail banner there. And then I'll just put some ATG right on the back of everything. I'm not popping anything up because I want to show that you can keep a shaker card pretty stinking flat. So I just adhered all that straight down, put a little adhesive behind my Nemo fish there and tucked him in the coral. And then I'm going to take my turtle and put it on the inside of the card. And then for the other card, I'll do the opposite. I'll put the turtle on the front and the fish on the inside. So that is how I put those two cards together. They are all set here. I just love the look of that shaker pocket, and you can see the fun little coordinating guy on the inside. The stamp set is super, super adorable. Make sure you head over and check out the Your Next Stamp June release. They've got some amazing products going on over there. And a huge shout out to Karen and everybody over at Your Next Stamp. Thank you so much for having me. I've had a blast. and they have generously agreed to donate one of this stamp set to a lucky winner for a giveaway. So make sure you head over to my blog, which is going to be linked below, and I will have a raffle copter over there so you can enter to win this Fishy Fun stamp set so you can create your own fabulous Finding Dory scenes. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, check out the description box below for all kinds of good stuff, including the supplies that I used here and the link to enter that giveaway. And I will catch you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.